Fresh scenes of death and violence on the streets of Bangkok. 3 people are reported to have been shot dead by soldiers this morning, bringing the death toll in the last 24 hours to at least 19. Troops are struggling to isolate a sprawling encampment of demonstrators calling for the resignation of the government. The latest fighting between the so-called red shirt protesters and soldiers have now entered a 3rd day, with many troops replacing rubber bullets with live rounds.
A promise of better ties between 2 old rivals. Greece and Turkey have signed more than 20 bilateral agreements on issues ranging from tourism and immigration to energy. The Turkish Prime Minister visited Athens yesterday, taking with him 10 cabinet ministers and some 80 businessmen, and he made Turkey's intentions clear. Turkey has no other goal in this process than full membership to the European Union, and I want that to be well known, he said. On the thorny issue of Cyprus, Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he believed that if all parties involved worked together, then there could be real results on uniting the divided island by the end of this year. One area in which debt-laden Greece is being urged to make cuts is in defence. At 2.8% of GDP, its military spending is proportionally the highest in the European Union. Greece's thirst for weapons comes largely from the friction that exists with Turkey. If both can become friendly neighbours, Athens will be able to make cuts more readily, and Ankara will have done its EU chances no harm.
There are signs of a rapprochement in the so-called special relationship between the US and the UK. Barack Obama was the first world leader to congratulate David Cameron on becoming the UK Prime Minister, and now the compliment's been returned. Washington was the first overseas port of call for the new UK Foreign Minister, William Hague.
The Foreign Secretary and I had a lot to talk about today. We discussed our shared mission in Afghanistan, and he reaffirmed his government's commitment to working with the international community and the Afghans to achieve long-term stability there. The United States is deeply appreciative of the British contributions in Afghanistan.
We discussed Iran, where we, of course, agreed on the need to send a strong and united signal about Iran's nuclear program to secure the passage of a UN Security Council resolution, and the United Kingdom will thereafter, of course, play a key role in ensuring that there is determined action by the European Union to follow up such a resolution. Thank you.
Hague promised a solid but not slavish relationship with the US. This will go some way to allaying fears that the UK has in the past followed the US policy tune with no independent strategy of its own.
The White House has told oil companies they'll no longer have an easy ride with regulators in the wake of the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. President Barack Obama accused the companies involved in the continuing leak of falling over each other to point the blame elsewhere, and he said future safety regulation would be tougher.
For too long, for a decade or more, there's been a cozy relationship between the oil companies and the federal agency that permits them to drill. Seems as if permits were too often issued based on little more than assurances of safety from the oil companies. That cannot and will not happen anymore.
It was announced that the agency that regulates oil drilling will be split up so that the division that inspects rigs and enforces safety laws will be independent of the division that collects royalties from oil companies. In brief, a British Member of Parliament is recovering after being stabbed twice in the stomach in his constituency office. Stephen Timms, a former Labour government minister, was said to be in good spirits and his injuries are not life-threatening. It's understood he had an arranged appointment with his attacker. Police have arrested a 21-year-old woman in connection with the incident. There are fears that a garbage crisis on the Italian island of Sicily could lead to a toxic health hazard. Angry residents of the main town, Palermo, have even set light to mountains of refuse bags that have been building up for months. It's the latest in a series of problems with waste disposal in Italy, a service that is often controlled by local mafia. And an English actress has accused filmmaker Roman Polanski of sexually abusing her in the early 1980s when she was aged 16. Charlotte Lewis claims the attack took place in Paris 4 years after Polanski fled the US, where he had pleaded guilty to unlawful sex with a minor. He's now in Switzerland fighting extradition.
12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Go for main engine start. 6, 5, 4, 3, and 0, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis.
Atlantis has blasted off from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida for the last time. It's the Space Shuttle's final trip to the International Space Station and the third to last ever shuttle mission into orbit.
And the external tank with
Atlantis roared off the launch pad at 2:20 p.m. local time, carrying 6 astronauts on a trip to deliver a Russian research and docking module.
booster separation confirmed.
NASA plans to end the shuttle program later this year after Atlantis' sister ships Discovery and Endeavour make their own final flights.
And go.